ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਮਾਤਾ ਤ੍ਰਿਪਤਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰ ਪਲਿਮਥ ਐਂਡ ਨਾਥ ਪ੍ਰਗਾਸ USA ਵੱਲੋਂ ਆਯੋਜਿਤ ਕੀਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਇਸ ਸਿੱਖ ਵਿਮਨ ਬੁੱਕ ਕਲੱਬ ਦੇ 6th ਮੀਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਆਪਣੀ ਬੁੱਕ ਕਲੱਬਸ ਦੇ ਰਿਵਿਊਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਮੈਟਰਸ ਅਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਟੈਕਸਟਸ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਕਵਰ ਕੀਤੇ ਨੇ ਐਂਡ ਲੇਡੀਜ਼ ਨੇ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਅਸਾਈਨਡ ਬੁੱਕਸ ਪੜ੍ਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕੀਤੇ ਨੇ। ਇਸੀ ਲੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਾਉਂਦਿਆਂ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ 3 ਬੁੱਕ ਰਿਵਿਊਜ਼ ਜੋ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਪਹਿਲਾ ਬੁੱਕ ਰਿਵਿਊ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਜੀ ਨਰਗਿਸ ਸੌਂਗਸ ਆਫ ਅ ਸਿੱਖ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸੈਕਿੰਡ ਬੁੱਕ ਰਿਵਿਊ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਉਹ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਓਲਡ ਮੈਨ ਇਨ ਦ ਸੀ ਅਰਨੈਸਟ ਹੈਮਿੰਗਵੇ। And the third book will be Old Path and White Clouds by Thich Nhat Hanh. So different traditions ਦੀਆਂ works ਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਅਸੀਂ different culture systems ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ achievements ਹੋਈਆਂ ਨੇ, mental achievements, spiritual achievements, thought ਦੇ ਪੱਧਰ ਉੱਤੇ achievements, ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ books ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ideas present ਹੋਏ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਥਰੂ ਮੁਹੱਈਆ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਵਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੀ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਅਮਰਪ੍ਰੀਤ ਢਿੱਲੋਂ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਬੁਲਾਵਾਂਗੀ। ਨਰਗਿਸ ਸੌਂਗਸ ਆਫ ਅ ਸਿੱਖ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ। ਸੋ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੁਲਾਉਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਪਰਸਨਲ ਲੈਵਲ 'ਤੇ ਥੈਂਕਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਇਸ ਉਪਰਾਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਥਾਪੜੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਆਸ਼ੀਰਵਾਦ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਇਵੈਂਟ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਫਸਟ ਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਭੈਣ ਜੀ ਨੇ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਹੈਜ਼ੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਜੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਮਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਉਸਨੂੰ ਐਡਰੈਸ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹਾਂਗੀ ਕਿ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਬੁੱਕ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਆਈਡੀਆਜ਼ ਪੇਸ਼ ਕਰਨ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ, ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪੰਥ ਦੇ ਮੰਨੇ ਹੋਏ ਵਿਦਵਾਨ ਅਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਸ਼ਲਾਘਾਯੋਗ ਫਿਗਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵਰਕ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਸ਼ੀਰਵਾਦ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਦੱਸੋਗੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਪਰਸਨਲ ਜਰਨੀ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਾਏਗਾ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਲਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਹੀ ਇਸ ਉਪਰਾਲੇ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਤਹਿ ਦਿਲੋਂ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਆਓ ਜੀ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਪੜ੍ਹਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਹੌਸਲਾ ਦਿਓ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਜੋ ਉਪਰਾਲਾ ਨਾਦ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ ਸੰਸਥਾ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, I personally strongly believe in that. ਪਰ ਜੋ ਅੱਜ ਮੈਂ ਜਿਸ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹੋ ਕਿ ਇਮਤਿਹਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਈ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਬੜਾ ਔਖਾ ਆ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਵੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਮਹਾਨ ਕਵੀ ਹੈ। ਮੇਰੀ ਸੋਚ, ਮੇਰਾ ਨੌਲੇਜ, ਮੇਰੀ ਇੰਟਲੈਕਟ, ਮੇਰੀ ਜਰਨੀ ਕੁਛ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਜੋ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਲਿਖਿਆ, ਜੋ ਇਟਸ ਬਿਯੋਂਡ ਯੂਰ ਇਮੈਜੀਨੇਸ਼ਨ। ਸੋ ਵੈਲ ਮੈਂ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੀ ਜੋ ਮੈਂ ਇਹ ਬੁੱਕ ਪੜ੍ਹੀ। ਇਹ ਬੁੱਕ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਕਿਤਾਬ ਹੈਗੀ ਨਰਗਿਸ ਸੌਂਗਸ ਆਫ ਏ ਸਿੱਖ, ਰਿਟਨ ਬਾਈ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ, ਟਰਾਂਸਲੇਟਡ ਬਾਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ। ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਥੰਮ ਹਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲਿਟਰੇਚਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਨੂੰ, ਸਾਡੀ ਹਿਊਮੈਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ, ਜੋੜਿਆ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਬੁੱਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿਕਸ ਆਫ ਸੌਂਗ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਹ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਲਿਖੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਟਰਾਂਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਬਾਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਮੈਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਰਾਂਗੀ। ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਰਗਸ ਬਾਰੇ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਦੱਸ ਸਕਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਨੈਕਟ ਹੋ ਸਕੀਏ। ਅਸੀਂ ਜੋ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਲਿਖਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਜੋ ਦੱਸਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਿੰਪਲਿਸਿਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕਰ ਸਕੀਏ। ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਟਰਾਂਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ ਬਾਈ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਉਹ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਂਗੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ we can go through, we can feel what does he means, how he interprets, how he take that. So ਨਰਗਸ ਕੀ ਹੈ? ਨਰਗਸ ਜਾਂ ਉਤਾਂਗ ਨੈਣੀ ਸਿਆਲੇ ਦਾ ਫੁੱਲ ਹੈ ਜੋ ਪਹਾੜਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਮੈਦਾਨੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਬਾਗਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਸ ਲੰਬੀ ਗੰਦਲ ਦੇ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ। ਤਾਂਗ ਭਰੀਆਂ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਉਡੀਕ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਸਰੂਪ ਬਣ ਖੜੋਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਇਉਂ ਜਾਪਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਕੋਈ ਇੱਕ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਪ੍ਰੇਮਨ ਮਾਨੋ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਲਗਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਰਗਸ ਦਾ ਫੁੱਲ ਬਣ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਉਸ ਫੁੱਲ ਦੇ ਦਿਲ ਤਰੰਗ, ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦਿਲ ਤਰੰਗ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਲਿਖੀ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਸਾਂ ਤੱਕਦੀ ਤੱਕਦੀ ਤੱਕ ਰਹੀਆਂ, ਮੈਂ ਸਾਂ ਤੱਕਦੀ ਤੱਕਦੀ ਤੱਕ ਰਹੀਆਂ, ਨਾ ਹੀ ਤੱਕਦੀ ਕਦੇ ਸਾਂ ਥੱਕ ਰਹੀਆਂ। ਟੱਕ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਤੱਕ ਲਗਾਉਂਦੀ ਸਾਂ, ਅੱਖਾਂ ਉਧਰੇ ਬਨ ਬਹਾਉਂਦੀ ਸਾਂ, ਜਿੱਧਰ ਗਏ ਨਾ ਮੁੜੇ ਸਨ ਪਿਆਰ ਵਾਲੇ। ਸੁੱਤੀਆਂ ਕਲਾਂ ਜਗਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਸਾਰ ਵਾਲੇ। ਨੈਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਾਹ ਤੇ ਗੱਡ ਛੱਡੇ, ਹੋਰ ਧਿਆਨ ਨੇ ਰਸਤੜੇ ਛੱਡ ਛੱਡੇ। ਜੋਗੀ ਵਾਂਗ ਇਸ ਥਾਂ ਤੇ ਬੈਠ ਰਹੀਆਂ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸੋਹਣੇ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਦੀ ਝਾਤ ਲਈਆਂ। ਤਾੜੀ ਲੱਗ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਲਾਮ ਇੱਕ ਵੱਲੇ, ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਤਾਕਤਾਂ ਆਣ ਕੇ ਨੈਣ ਮੱਲੇ। ਸੁਰਤ ਛੱਡ ਬੈਠੀ ਹੋਰ ਆਹਾਰ ਸਾਰੇ, ਦੇਖਣ ਦੀ ਲੱਗ ਗਈ ਇੱਕ ਕਾਰੇ। ਅੱਖਾਂ ਅੱਡੀਆਂ ਅਥਰੂ ਨਾਲ ਭਰੀਆਂ, ਕਦੇ ਉਛਲ ਉਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਸ ਹਰੀਆਂ। ਕਦੇ ਤਾਂਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਦਾਸ ਹੋਇਆ, ਕਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਿਰਾਸ਼ ਹੋਈਆਂ। ਕਦੇ ਸਦਰਾਂ ਸੁਖਨਾ ਨਾਲ ਸਰੀਆਂ, ਰੁਮਕੇ ਆਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਨ ਕਦੇ ਠਰੀਆਂ। ਰਹੀਆਂ ਲੱਗੀਆਂ ਰਾਹ ਤਕਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਦਾਣੇ, ਦਿਨੇ ਰਾਤ ਹੀ ਤਾਂਗਾਂ ਤੰਗਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਤੱਕ ਕੇ ਤੱਕਦੀਆਂ ਬੁਝ ਗਈਆਂ, ਤੱਕ ਕੇ ਤੱਕਦੀਆਂ ਬੁਝ ਗਈਆਂ। ਹਿੱਲਣ ਜੁਲਣ ਤੇ ਚਮਕਣ ਭੁੱਲ ਗਈਆਂ। ਖਾਣਾ ਪੀਣਾ ਤੇ ਸੋਮਣਾ ਨਸ ਗਿਆ, ਕੰਮ ਕਾਜ ਤੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਸਭ ਪਸ ਪਿਆ। ਲੱਗੀ ਦੇ ਕੁਮਲਾਨ ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਲਿੱਸੀ ਹੋਂਦੀ ਕਾਨੇ ਦੀ ਵਾਂਗ ਦਸੀ। ਨੈਣ ਰਹੇ ਗੱਡੇ ਉਸ ਰਾਹ ਉੱਤੇ। ਕਿੰਨੀ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਇੱਕ ਤਾਂਗ ਜੇ ਕਦੀ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਵੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਵਿੱਚ, ਕਿਸੇ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦੀ, ਜਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਯੂ ਕੈਨ ਰਿਲੇਟ ਟੂ ਦੈਟ। ਨੈਣ ਰਹੇ ਗੱਡੇ ਉਸ ਰਾਹ ਉੱਤੇ, ਵਰੇ ਬੀਤ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੁੱਤੇ। ਸਾਰੀ ਦੇਹ ਹੁਣ ਲੱਗੀ ਤਹਿਲੀਲ ਹੋਵਣ, ਖਰ ਅੰਦਰੋਂ ਲੀਨ ਹੋਵਣ। ਇੱਕ ਅੰਗ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਆਪ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਕੁੱਲ ਮਿਲੇ ਤੇ ਨੈਣਾ ਨੂੰ ਰਸਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਕਣੀ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਨੈਣਾ ਜੋਤ ਬਾਲਦੀ ਸੀ, ਜਿਉਂਦੀ ਕਣੀ ਇਹ ਨੈਣਾ ਜਿਵਾਲਦੀ ਸੀ। ਜਿਉਂਦੇ ਰਹੋ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੀਵੇ, ਰਾਹ ਪ੍ਰੀਤਮ ਦਾ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਖੀਵੇ। ਇਹਨਾਂ ਜਿਉਂਦਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਗਏ ਅੰਗ ਵਾਰੇ, ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਵਦੇ ਗਏ ਸਾਰੇ। ਅੰਤ ਰਹਿ ਗਈ ਸਾਵਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਤੀਲੜਾ ਮੈਂ, ਰੰਗ ਅੱਖ ਦਾ ਪਲਟਿਆ ਪੀਲੜਾ ਮੈਂ, ਅੰਤ ਰਹਿ ਗਈ ਸਾਵਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਤੀਲੜਾ ਮੈਂ, ਰੰਗ ਅੱਖ ਦਾ ਪਲਟਿਆ ਪੀਲੜਾ ਮੈਂ, ਇੱਕ ਟੱਗ ਲੱਗੇ ਨੈਣ ਇੱਕ ਹੋ ਗਏ, ਚਿੱਟੇ ਡੇਲਿਆਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੀਲਕ ਹੋ ਗਏ, ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਤਹਿਲੀਲ ਹੋ ਗਈ। ਜਦੋਂ ਦੇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਤਹਿਲੀਲ ਹੋ ਗਈ, ਤਦੋਂ ਧਰਤ ਦੀ ਪਿਆਰ ਦਲੀਲ ਹੋ ਗਈ, ਰਸ ਆਪਣਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਿਲਾਣ ਲੱਗੀ, ਰੰਗਾ ਰੇਸਿਆਂ ਰਸਾਂ ਪੁਚਾਣ ਲੱਗੀ। ਜਿਉਂਦੀ ਕਣੀ ਜੋ ਅੱਖ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੜੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਜਿਉਂਦੀ ਕਣੀ ਜੋ ਅੱਖ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੜੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਜਿਉਂਦੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਅੱਖ ਜਿਉਂ ਬਣੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਧਰਤੀ ਮਾਂ ਬਣ ਗਈ ਅੱਖ ਪਾਲਣੇ ਨੂੰ, ਪ੍ਰੇਮ ਜੋਤ ਬਣਿਆ ਅੱਖ ਜਾਲਣੇ ਨੂੰ, ਹੋ ਗਈ ਅਮਰ ਮੈਂ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦੇ ਰਾਹ ਤੱਕਦੀ, ਤੱਕਦੀ ਤੱਕਦੀ ਮੈਂ ਜੁਗਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਥੱਕਦੀ, ਜੁਗਾਂ ਜਿਉਂਦੀ ਤੱਕਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਅੱਕਦੀ, ਹਰਦਮ ਦੇਖਣੋ ਰਾਹ ਮੈਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਚੱਕਦੀ, ਰਾਹ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਦਾ ਦੇਖਦੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਥੱਕਦੀ, ਜੁਗਾਂ ਜੁਗਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਅੱਖ ਇਹ ਰਹੀ ਤੱਕਦੀ। ਦੀਨ ਦੁਨੀ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਤੋਂ ਵਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ, ਪਿਆਰੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਦਿੱਤੇ, ਆਪਣਾ ਭੇਟ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਇੱਕ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਤਾਈਂ, ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਤੇ ਆਤਮਾ ਵਿਰਿਆਈ, ਅੱਲਾ ਸਹੁੰ ਮੈਂ ਪਾਤ ਝਾਤ ਇੱਕ ਪਾਈ, ਇੱਕ ਝਾਤ ਪਿਆਰੀ ਇੱਕ ਝਾਤ ਪਾਈ, ਇਸ ਝਾਤ ਨੇ ਅੱਖ ਬਣਾ ਲਿੱਤਾ, ਆਪਣੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਖ ਬਿਠਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਇੱਕ ਝਾਤ ਨੇ, ਕੋਲੀ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਆਪਣਾ ਆਪ ਸਾਰਾ, ਬਣ ਗਈ ਅੱਖ ਲੁੱਟ ਗਿਆ ਸਮਾਨ ਸਾਰਾ, ਜਾਮਾ ਪਲਟਿਆ ਇਸ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਨਿਆਰੇ, ਕਾਇਆ ਪਲਟ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਇਸ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਪਿਆਰੇ, ਕਰਕੇ ਅੱਖ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਖ ਬਹਾਲਿਆ ਏ, ਝਾਤੀ ਇੱਕ ਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਵਾਲਿਆ ਏ। ਇੱਕ ਵੇਰ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਅੱਖ ਵੜਿਆ, ਚਮਕਣ ਵਾਲੜਾ ਚੱਕ ਸਮਾਨ ਖੜਿਆ, ਨੀਂਦ ਕੱਢ ਕੇ ਲੈ ਗਿਆ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਈਂ, ਜਾਦੂ ਝਾਕੀ ਆ ਇਸ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਪਾਈ, ਉਹ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਮੈਂ ਰਹਿ ਗਈ ਅੱਖ ਪਾਈ, ਸਦਾ ਤੱਕਦੀ ਜਿਉਂਦੀ ਅੱਖ ਸਾਈਂ, ਉਹ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਖਰੀਦਦਾਰ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਦੀ ਮੈਂ, ਲਈ ਹੱਟ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਵਪਾਰ ਦੀ ਮੈਂ, ਕਦੋਂ ਮੋੜ ਮੁਹਾੜਾ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਆਵੇ, ਝੋਲੀ ਅੱਖ ਦੀ ਖੈਰ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਪਾਵੇ, ਸਿੱਖ ਦੀ ਅੱਖ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਵਾਸ ਪਾਵੇ, ਖੁੱਲੀ ਸਦਾ ਦੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਿਵਾਸ ਪਾਵੇ, ਚਮਕਨ ਪੁੱਲੀ ਦੇ ਮੀਚਣਾ ਵਿਸਰੀਏ, ਹਰਬੇ ਲੱਗਣੋਂ ਸੌਣੇ ਤੋਂ ਖਿਸਰੀਏ, ਸਦਾ ਸਦਾ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਚੁੱਪ ਮੰਗਦੀ ਏ, ਚੁੱਪ ਆਵਾਜ਼ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਚੁੱਪ ਮੰਗਦੀ ਏ, ਕਦੇ ਫੇਰਾ ਉਹ ਆਣ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਪਾਵੇ, ਬੱਗੀ ਪਿਲੜੀ ਆਣ ਚਰਨਾਰ ਲਾਵੇ, ਰਹੇ ਅੱਖ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਖ ਨਹੀਂ, ਚੱਕ ਸਵਾਦ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਪਰਖ ਨਹੀਂ, ਕਦੇ ਸਮਾਂ ਆਵੇ ਆ ਦੀਦਾਰ ਜਾਵੇ, ਇਸ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਖੈਰ ਆ ਪਿਆਰ ਪਾਵੇ, ਪੀਲੀ ਅੱਖ ਕਟੋਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਾਂਗ ਕੀਤੀ, ਪੀਲੀ ਅੱਖ ਕਟੋਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਾਂਗ ਕੀਤੀ, ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਪਿਆਸ ਹੈ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਰੱਜ ਪੀਤੀ, ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਪਿਆਸ ਹੈ ਮੈਂਡੜੀ ਵੰਡ ਆਈ, ਕਾਸਾ ਅੱਖ ਦਾ ਸਦਾ ਤੋਂ ਅਡਿਆਈ, ਦਿਨੇ ਰਾਤ ਉਡੀਕ ਕਰਾਮ ਦੀ ਮੈਂ, ਜੁਗਾਂ ਜੁਗਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਰਾਹ ਤਕਾਮ ਦੀ ਮੈਂ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਨਰਗਸ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਪਿਆਸ, ਇੱਕ ਇਹ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਜਿਹਦੀ ਟਰਾਂਸਲੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਾਡੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੁਣਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ, ਉਹ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੈ। It's so simple. He came this way, that way he went. He saw him and I lost him. He was but now before my eyes. He has just gone that way. He has just gone and can't yet return. Ask me not what I am doing in the open, in the rain, sunshine and storm. Touch me not, advise me not. He came this way, That way he went. I saw him and I lost him. He was just before my eyes. I am not searching for him. I am but looking the way he went. They said he would not return, but my left hand shades my eyes, and I look, my eyelids do not drop on the road that he has gone. My eyes close not, they are still looking for him who has not yet returned. He who wakes in me ever new 1,000 feelings, yet unborn, and things of love unknown to me, he who took my heart away by one glance at me. Touch me not, advise me no more, pray. I am not concerned with the 100 roads that go. I sit and I will sit by this road where he has gone. I will wait here for him. I will fix my eyes on this road. He will look this way, for this way I saw him go. I am sad now for his love. I will still sit and wait for him, and let pass the pageant of the world. It shall be nothing to me if ages pass. He will soon be coming this way. Touch me not, advise me no more. My mind has let go the hold of all the things it had. It is only an eye, a beautiful eye, a fixed gaze, an unwearying look, a woman's woe. It is only looking in the way I saw him go. My mind is filled with sudden joy. I feel he is coming. My eyes burn brighter, but my heart soon fails with pain again, and my eyes grow dim with tears. Oh, the pain grows unbearable, and my eyes mourn as if the life of my life has gone from me forever. I caution myself. No such ill boding will I allow to rule within. My eyes glow again from 100 auspicious signs. I make offerings of joy to gods. And I look along the way he went. Surely he cannot be very far. Day changes into night and night into day, but changes not my eyes. They are fixed now forever. They have forgotten how to close. They know no sleep, no rest. My life needs neither eat nor drink. It is all at gaze on the way that he has gone. Touch me not, advise me no more. Destroy the task of duty. Let go in the great fire of death and change the deeds and the calls of life. My vocation of life is this. Go from me, I am not yours. My body fails, let it fail, let it fade and extinguish, but never shall the gaze of my eyes turn from the way that he has gone. Touch me not, advise me no more. Life goes, let it go, my soul is in my eyes that look along the way. He will return to me. Let eye and brain dissolve, let limb after limb fail, let my stems and my leaves drop, but let my eyes last a little while more. My life is in my eyes. The elements try in vain to dry me up by drying blood and flesh and bone. There is a little lamp of life lit by love and set in the shrine of my eyes. And I tell you, the winds of death know not how to blow it out. It is the light of the beloved that burns in the infinity storm of change, unchanged in my eyes. My eyes are a spark of heaven. I live and live as long as heaven is. As long as love and life are, my eyes beam and glisten, and they are fixed forever on the road he has gone. They shall look without an eyelid's drop forever along that way. All other limbs are dead. Let them die, but let my eyes remain. The green stem has turned dry, but heaven and earth feed the life in my eyes. Heaven and earth nurse them who have ceased to nurse themselves. Eternity now is mine. My eyes have been looking along the way my love has gone from me. In the name of Allah, I swear, I had but one glimpse of him. He came this way, that way he went. I saw him and I lost him. He was but now before my eyes. He has gone and hath not yet returned. It was but one glance that made me so selfless. It was one glance that made me forever pale and white. And on forever I look for him. He made me death pale, white and ill. He took my sleep and rest away. O Allah, I had but one glimpse of him. My eyes are as cups held in beggars' hands, waiting to be filled with love. He came this way, that way he went. I saw him and I lost him. He was but now before my eyes. He has gone, my love has gone that way. He has gone and hath not yet returned. So, this is the translation of Bhai Veer Singh's Nargis. Now, the relationship between two poets, Bhai Veer Singh and Professor Puran Singh. No other friendship in Punjabi literature has been more picturesque, more creative than one which existed between Bhai Veer Singh and Professor Puran Singh. Bhai Veer Singh was the mentor, the sage, the giver. Professor Puran Singh, a kindred spirit, was the disciple, the follower, the recipient. His impulsive, restless genius was tranquilized by Bhai Veer Singh's magic touch. Bhai Veer Singh rediscovered for him his religious and cultural identity. He won him over decisively to Punjabi writing. From Puran Singh's pen, Punjabi gained some of its most eloquent and exquisite poetry, its most sensitive and rich prose. This is how Puran Singh acknowledges his debt to Bhai Veer Singh. So, in words of Professor Puran Singh, what Bhai Veer Singh planted in him, he wrote himself. This is his words, Professor Puran Singh ji. I received poetry, and it was by the favor of that kindly eye. His dulcet prophetic words touched automatically the source of my own Punjabi vocabulary. The faults of what is learnt are all personal, the merits, the gifts, personal, the merits, the gifts of the giver. Merits, the gifts of the giver. Who was the giver? By Veer Singh. What I am is but an humble being, a beggar walking from a door to door, but the fire in my eye is his. So is the shining, burning jewel within my heart. This is his wording, Professor Puran Singh, what he learned from Bhai Veer Singh. Puran Singh rendered further homage by translating some of Bhai Veer Singh's poems into English. Translations, as has been said, are seldom anything more than the wrong side of the rich embroidery. फुलकारी देखी सब ने फुलकारी देखी होनी है एक साइड फुलकारी दी ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਰੰਗਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਹਣੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਪੁੱਠਾ ਪਾਸਾ ਦੇਖੋ ਪੁੱਠਾ ਪਾਸਾ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਪੈਟਰਨ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਪਰ ਪੂਰੇ ਰੰਗ ਨਹੀਂ ਭਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਧੀ ਸਾਈਡ ਭਰ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਸੋ ਇੱਥੇ ਮਤਲਬ Professor Puran Singh, he tried his best to translate, not word to word, literally like wordly meanings. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ essence ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਪੋਇਮ ਪੜ੍ਹੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਤੱਕਦੀਆਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਰਡਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਖਿਆ not ਕਿ word to word translation ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ Yet if translations were ever anything more, Puran Singh should rank prominently among them. Puran Singh himself shared some of Bhai Veer Singh's mystical exhalations. He himself had glimpses of those intuitive realm of gold. He was able to recapture in his renderings the joy and harmony of Bhai Veer Singh's words. So, when I read this book, I didn't even read this only. I have to read Punjabi version also. ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਇੰਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਬਿਆਨ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੀ that was eye opening for me ਪਰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਬਾਰੇ ਜੇ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਜਾਏ he was well educated he was born in Sikh family. Professor Puran Singh was a Punjabi poet, scientist and mystic, born in Pothohar, now in Pakistan, in an Ahluwalia family. He is acclaimed as one of the founders of modern Punjabi poetry. Though a born Sikh, he became a Buddhist bhikshu and sannyasi under the influence of Japanese Buddhist monk and Swami Ram Tirath, respectively, before he finally got settled as a Sikh mystic when he came under influence of Bhai Veer Singh. Akhir te ਉਹ Bhai Veer Singh ਜੀ ਦੇ influence ਦੇ ਨਾਲ became a Sikh. When you read the poet, you see this Professor Puran Singh's journey. He is full of intellect. He is a born Sikh. ਛੋਟੀ ਜੀ ਇੱਕ ਚੀਜ਼ ਇੱਥੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਆਰਟੀਕਲ ਪੜ੍ਹੇ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਯਾਦ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਛੋਟੇ ਜਿਹੇ ਸੀ ਹਾਊ ਹਿਜ਼ ਮਦਰ was teaching him Japji Sahib every single day, juda karna Japji Sahib, uthna Japji Sahib, ਰੋਟੀ ਖਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜਪਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸੁਣਾ, ਬਾਹਰ ਖੇਡਣ ਜਾਣ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਜਪਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸੁਣਾਓ। ਸੋ ਇਟ ਇਜ਼ ਜਸਟ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪ ਆਪਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਰਿਲੇਟ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ, ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਬਟ ਐਨੀਵੇ that was the initial childhood impact of his mother. Every day her mother's faith, her mother's divine contact, ਜੋ ਵੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹੋ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਉੱਠਦੇ ਬੈਠਦੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ, ਬਟ ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਔਨ ਹਿਜ਼ ਓਨ ਜਰਨੀ। ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਖੂਬ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕੀਤੀ, ਬਾਹਰ ਗਏ, ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਸਾਇੰਟਿਸਟ ਬਣੇ। ਆਇਲ ਆਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਫਰੈਗਰੈਂਸ ਵਾਲੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਯੂਜ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਉਹ ਆਇਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਇਨਵੈਂਸ਼ਨ ਹੈ। ਵੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਅ lot more into those things anyway। ਫਿਰ ਉਹ ਬੁੱਧ ਭਿਕਸ਼ੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਬਣ ਕੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਦੋਂ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਵਾਪਸ ਆਏ ਤਾਂ ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਏ ਮੌਂਕ, ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਅ ਭਿਕਸ਼ੂ, ਵਾਲ ਕੱਟੇ, ਭਗਵਾਂ ਚੋਲਾ ਪਾਇਆ ਹੋਇਆ। You can see what goes into mother's mind, right? What goes into his family's mind, but he wasn't, he was into ਇਹ ਤਲਾਸ਼ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਾ ਕਿਸੇ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੀ। ਜਦੋਂ 1906 ਵਿੱਚ ਜਦੋਂ ਵਾਪਸ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਆਏ ਤੇ ਉਦੋਂ ਸਵਾਮੀ ਰਾਮ ਤੀਰਥ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੀਗੇ, he was trying to make him a leader of the Bhikshu Buddhism da, because he was in that capability sige, but he did not, he refused. So after that he came into contact with Bhai Veer Singh in 1912 I guess, right? ਉੱਥੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਵਾਰਤਾਲਾਪ ਹੋਈ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋਈ। ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਫੁੱਲ ਆਫ ਇੰਟਲੈਕਟ। ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਸੇਂਟ ਪੋਇਟ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ 'ਤੇ ਪਿਆ, ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਓਨਲੀ ਸੈਡ, ਤੇਰੇ ਇੰਨੇ ਕੂਲੇ ਵਾਲ, ਇੰਨੀ ਖੁਰਦਰੀ ਕੈਂਚੀ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਦੀ ਹੈ, ਕਿਵੇਂ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਤਰ ਦਿੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਮਤਲਬ ਦਿਸ ਇਜ਼ ਵਟ ਆਈ ਲਰਨਡ ਫਰੋਮ ਦੈਟ। ਸੋ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੰਬੋਲਿਕ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ। ਸੋ ਹੀ ਕੇਮ ਹੋਮ, ਹੀ ਟੋਲਡ ਹਿਜ਼ ਵਾਈਫ ਮਾਇਆ, ਆਈ ਗੈਸ ਮਾਇਆ, ਐਂਡ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਹੈਰਾਨ ਰਹਿ ਗਈ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਦੀ ਵਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੱਟੇ। ਮਤਲਬ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਰਨੀ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਹੀ ਬਿਕੇਮ ਏ ਸਿੱਖ, ਨਾਟ ਇਵਨ, ਦੇਰ ਵਾਜ਼ ਅ ਲੋਟ ਮੋਰ, there was a vartalap back and forth between Pai Saab and like fully satisfying him about the Sikhi, about the spiritual, the whole thing, what his heart was waiting to learn। ਮਤਲਬ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਸਵਾਲ ਸੀਗੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਤੋਂ ਉਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਵਾਬ ਮਿਲੇ ਤੇ ਦੈਨ ਹੀ ਬਿਕੇਮ ਟੋਟਲੀ ਸਿੱਖ। ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਨਫਰੰਸ 1913 'ਚ ਹੋਈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੀ ਵਾਜ਼ ਵਨ ਆਫ ਦੈਟ ਹੂ ਵਾਜ਼ ਸਿਟਿੰਗ ਦੇਅਰ, ਐਂਡ ਹੀ ਗੇਵ ਦੈਟ ਹੋਲ ਕ੍ਰੈਡਿਟ ਟੂ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬੀਜ ਬੀਜਿਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜੋ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ, what came through his pen, nobody else could write that about Sikhi, about gurus, about Guru Granth Sahib. But he claims that is all that Sikhs touch dein Bhai Veer Singh di. So not taking too long, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਇਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਹੋਰ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ। ਦੇ ਆਰ ਗ੍ਰੇਟ, ਦੇ ਆਰ ਵੈਰੀ ਸਿੰਪਲ ਐਂਡ ਦਿਸ ਹੈਜ਼ ਅ ਲੋਟ ਡੀਪ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਇਨ ਟੂ ਦੈਟ। ਫਿਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੂਰਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰੋਫੈਸਰ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ, ਉਹ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਜੋ ਮੈਂ ਇਸ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਜਾਂ ਜਰਨੀ ਛੋਟਾ ਜਿਹਾ, ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਜੋ ਮੈਂ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ, ਮੈਂ ਆਈ ਕੈਨ ਰਿਲੇਟ ਟੂ ਦੈਟ। ਲਾਈਕ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਤਾਂ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਲਿਖਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਿੰਪਲਿਸਿਟੀ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ, ਸਾਡੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਣ, ਸਾਡੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਣ, ਸਾਡੀ ਆਈਡੈਂਟਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਣ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਜਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਿੰਪਲ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਈਜ਼ੀਲੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ he was a great poet, or definitely top notch artist, right? And ਇੱਕ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਹੈਗੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਉਹਦੇ ਜੀਵਨ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਸਿੰਪਲ ਜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ। ਚੰਦ ਆਕਾਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰਦਾ, ਚੰਦ ਆਕਾਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰਦਾ, ਜਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਝਾਤੀ ਮਾਰੇ, ਜਲ ਨਿਰਮਲ, ਜਲ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਉਸ ਜੱਫੀ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਤਾਰੇ। ਹੁਣ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਐ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਚੰਦ ਉਹ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਤੇ ਇਟਸ ਸੱਚ ਏ ਲੌਂਗ ਡੀਪ ਮੀਨਿੰਗ ਕਿ ਚੰਦ ਆਕਾਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰਦਾ, ਚੰਦ ਆਕਾਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰਦਾ, ਜਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਝਾਤੀ ਮਾਰੇ, ਝਾਤੀ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ ਕਦੀ all these words how much we use on a regular basis, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਡੂੰਘਾ, ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਅਫੈਕਸ਼ਨ, ਕਿੰਨਾ ਪਿਆਰ, ਕਿੰਨਾ ਉਹਦੇ 'ਚ ਕੁਦਰਤ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਹੈਗਾ। ਜਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਝਾਤੀ ਮਾਰੇ, ਜਲ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਉਸ ਜੱਫੀ ਪਾ ਕੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਤਾਰੇ, ਜਲ ਨਿਰਮਲ। ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ, ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਨੇਚਰ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ, ਲਗਾਵ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਾ ਨੇਚਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਨਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ ਹੈ। ਵੇਅਰ ਆਰ ਪਲੈਨਟ ਆਲ ਦੈਸ ਹੈਪਨਿੰਗ ਕਿ ਵੀ ਨਹਿਰਾਂ ਸੁੱਕ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਅਤੇ ਪੋਲਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਗਈ, ਆਲ ਦੈਟ, ਰਾਈਟ। ਮਤਲਬ ਹਿਸ ਪੋਇਟਰੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਥੀਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨੇਚਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਦਾ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀਆਂ ਰਾਈਟਿੰਗ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨੇਚਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੋੜਦੀਆਂ। ਦੂਜਾ ਪਿਆਰ, when you read the writings of Bhai Veer Singh, he talks about love, love about nature, love about ਇੱਕ ਦੂਜੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਭੈਣ ਭਰਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਕਿਸੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਿਆਰ ਇਜ਼ ਏ ਪਿਆਰ। ਸੋ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੀ ਪਰਿਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਇੰਨੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਪਿਆਰ ਹੀ ਸਭ ਕੁਛ ਹੈ। ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਜਿਨ ਪਿਆਰ ਕੀਓ ਤਿਨ ਹੀ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਪਾਇਓ। ਸੋ ਇੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਡਿਵਾਈਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਨੈਕਟ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਹੈ। ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਆਰ ਦੇਖਾਂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਪਿਆਰ ਦਿਸੂਗਾ। I don't know how to put it into more than that. ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਆਰਟ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਨਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਸੀਮਾ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ, ਨਾ ਆਰਟ ਦੀ ਕੋਈ ਸੀਮਾ ਹੈਗੀ ਹੈ। ਆਰਟ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਨਾ ਮੇਲ ਹੈ, ਨਾ ਫੀਮੇਲ ਹੈ, ਨਾ ਗੋਰਾ ਹੈ, ਨਾ ਕਾਲਾ ਹੈ। ਆਰਟ ਇਜ਼ ਏ ਆਰਟ। ਆਰਟ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ। ਜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਲਿਖਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਰਾਣੀ ਰਾਜ ਕੌਰ, ਮੇਰੇ ਸਾਈਆਂ ਜੀਓ, ਮੇਰੇ ਸਾਈਆਂ ਜੀਓ ਇਜ਼ ਆਲ ਅਬਾਊਟ ਮਾਈ ਐਵਰੀਡੇ ਲਿਵਿੰਗ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਕਮ ਅਕ੍ਰੋਸ ਲਾਈਕ ਲਿਵ ਇਨ ਮੂਮੈਂਟ, ਲਿਵ ਇਨ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੈਂਟ, ਮਾਈਂਡਫੁਲਨੈਸ, ਇਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਲਿਖੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਫਿਕਰ ਕਰਨਾ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਕਵਿਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਯਾਦ ਹੈਗੀ ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਪੜ੍ਹੀ ਸੀ ਕਿਤੇ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਸੋਚੋ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਰਾਣਾ ਸੂਰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੇ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਰਾਣਾ ਸੂਰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੇ ਥਾਊਜ਼ੈਂਡਸ ਆਫ ਹੰਡਰਡਸ ਆਫ ਪੇਪਰਸ ਉਹਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ। ਨਾਮ, ਦਾਨ, ਇਸ਼ਨਾਨ, ਜੋ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਬਹੁਤ ਕਲੋਜ਼ਲੀ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਲਿਖਤ ਜੀਵਨ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਡਿਸਕਰਾਈਬ ਕਰਿਆ ਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਬਾਰੇ, ਹਰ ਸਾਡੇ ਸੈਂਸਿਸ ਬਾਰੇ, ਆਲੇ ਦੁਆਲੇ ਬਾਰੇ। ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਕੀ ਹੈ, ਇਹ ਖੇੜਾ ਆ, ਇਹ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਹੈ, ਸਭ ਕੁਛ ਯੂ ਨੋ ਲਾਈਕ ਵਨਨੈਸ ਦਾ ਸੰਦੇਸ਼ ਹੈ, ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਦਾ। ਸੋ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਇੰਨੀਆਂ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ, ਸੋ ਸੱਚ ਏ ਬਿਗ ਪੋਇਟ, ਬਟ ਹਿਜ਼ ਲਾਈਫ ਵਾਜ਼ ਆਲਸੋ, ਹੀ ਲਿਵਡ ਲਾਈਫ ਲਾਈਕ ਏ ਪੋਇਟ। ਲਾਈਕ ਏ ਪੋਇਟ ਮੀਨਸ ਲਾਈਕ ਏ ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਜੀਵਨ ਜੀਆ। ਮੈਸੇਜ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ, ਮੁੱਕਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਇਹ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ it's a lot, can't put the thesis in it, but I'm all over the place, ਇੰਨਾ ਕੁਛ ਆ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਚਮਤਕਾਰ ਤੇ the series of book ਰਾਗਾਂ 'ਚ ਵੀ ਲਿਖੇ। can you believe that? ਰਾਗਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਊਜ਼ੀਕਲ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਹੈ they can read that, right? So ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਲਫ਼ਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਸੈਂਟੈਂਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਆਖੂੰਗੀ, ਜੇ ਇੱਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਦਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਜਿਉਣਾ ਹੈ, ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਬਾਰੇ ਜਾਣਨਾ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਪੜ੍ਹੋ। ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਪੜ੍ਹਦਿਆਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂਆਂ ਦੀ ਸ਼ੋਅ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ। ਯੂ ਆਰ ਵੈਰੀ ਕਲੋਜ਼ ਟੂ ਗੁਰੂਜ਼। The way he describes Guru Nanak, the way he describes the oneness. So ਇਹੀ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਹੈ। ਮੈਸੇਜ ਨੰਬਰ 2 ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਨਾਦ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ ਦਾ ਹੀਲਾ ਹੈ ਕੀਤਾ, ਇਹ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗਾ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਬਿਸਾਈਡ ਦੈਟ ਇਸ ਇੰਸਟੀਟਿਊਸ਼ਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਸਟੱਡੀ ਗਰੁੱਪ we must have it। ਇੱਕ ਕਾਲਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਲਾਸਾਂ ਲੱਗਦੀਆਂ, ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਲੈਣੀ ਪੈਂਦੀ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ ਵੀ ਆਹ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਸਬਜੈਕਟ ਲੈਣਾ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਭਾਈ ਵੀਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ। It should be compulsory to all the children should go through all this when they are reading Guru Granth Sahib। So this is my take for that। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਜੀਵਨ ਤੇ ਬਚਿਆ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। So next uprala is to establish a Bhai Veer Singh's group or a study group where we can study। मतलब इन्ना ज़्यादा है, पढ़ते पढ़ते you can really connect to Guru Granth Sahib। We should have that beautiful library where Professor Puran Singh and Bhai Veer Singh's books, we should keep it। So ਅੱਜ ਤੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
So Punjab is the land of 5 rivers, and these waters, they originate from the Himalayan peaks and they flow into the Arabian Sea. And these 5 rivers, they gave birth to the Indus Valley civilization. By Veer Singh, his works are recognized as the 6th river of Punjab, and there is a reason for that. The ink that descended from Pai Sahib's works and his spiritual heights, that ink merged into the imagination of teeming millions of Punjabis all over the world. And in the flowing of that ink into the imagination of teeming millions of people, several hearts were quenched for their literary spiritual thirst. And we've seen it right here on the stage. In this case, we saw that this ink, through the book of Nargis, permeated rather deeply in the minds of Penji here, in her imagination, in the way she was presenting, in the way she was talking. And so she ended with reading us the excerpts from one particular poem from the book that particularly resonated with her. And Pai Sahib's poetry, as we've seen in the example that she shared with us, it's full of spiritual allegory, allusion, servitude, love, devotion, rich imagery. And he draws a beautiful parallel between the spirit of a seeker, a Sikh, for the Guru, as is the spirit of the Nargis flower. As the Nargis flower sits with its eyes forever bedewed with the love of the Guru, that's how the Sikh's eyes get bedewed in the love of Guru. So she's thrown us a strong recommendation to read Pai Sahib's works and books, and she's been rather influenced, and we can see that right here. And the idea of having Pai Sahib, Veer Singh's book club, that basically goes in that promulgates the reading of his works is an excellent idea. And Guru Sahib kirpa karan te uprala paan wale waqt de vich kar sakiye. Thank you for your thoughts and talk, Penji. I'd like to now invite the second speaker of today's session, Gauravi Sabharwal. She's going to present the book review on Ernest Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I'm going to do a quick review and analysis of Ernest Hemingway's novella, The Old Man and the Sea. But first, a little bit about the author. So, Ernest Hemingway, one of the most renowned author and journalist of his era, he was born in 1899 in Oak Park, Illinois. He started his career as a writer in a newspaper office at the age of 17. After the United States entered First World War, he joined a volunteer ambulance unit in the Italian army. Serving at the front, he was wounded and he spent considerable time in the hospitals. He later became a reporter for Canadian and American newspapers and was soon sent back to Europe to cover such events as the Greek Revolution. Now, Hemingway used his life experiences as inspirations for many of his books. So a couple of his famous books are A Farewell to Arms that he wrote in 1929, which is the study of an American ambulance officer's disillusionment in the war and his role as a deserter. The next book he wrote, For Whom the Bell Tolls, in 1940. Hemingway used his experiences as a reporter during the Civil War in Spain as the background for this book, which is considered his most ambitious novel. And finally, The Old Man and the Sea that I'm going to present today. When The Old Man and the Sea was published in 1952, Hemingway hadn't written a significant literary work for over a decade. People were saying that Hemingway was through as a writer. He began The Old Man and the Sea to prove that not only was he still in the writing game, he had yet to produce his best work. He won a Pulitzer Prize for this book. In 1954, he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature, and this quote, this is directly from the citation accompanying the author's Nobel Prize, for his mastery of the art of narrative, most recently demonstrated in The Old Man and the Sea, and for the influence that he has exerted on contemporary style. Hemingway's writing style is sometimes referred to as the Iceberg Theory. This general idea of the Iceberg Theory is that a writer should focus on a minimalistic style without explicitly stating the underlying issues or themes. Essentially, the importance of a story lies beneath the surface and cannot be directly seen. So now on to the book. At first glance, the story appears to be a simple tale of an old Cuban seasoned fisherman who catches an enormous fish, the greatest catch of his life, only to lose it. There's much more to the story, a tale of bravery and heroism, of one man's struggle against his own doubts, the elements, a massive fish, sharks, and even his desire to give up everything. The old man eventually succeeds, then fails, and then wins again. It's a story of perseverance and the masculine pride of the old man against the elements. So for 84 days, Santiago, an aged Cuban fisherman, has set out to sea and returned back empty-handed every time. So conspicuously unlucky is he that the parents of a young, devoted apprentice and friend, Manolin, have forced the boy to leave the old man in order to fish in a more prosperous boat. Nevertheless, the boy continues to care for the old man upon his return each night. He helps the man tote his gear to his hut, secures food for him, and discusses the latest developments in American baseball, especially the trials of the old man's hero, Joe DiMaggio. Santiago is confident that his unproductive streak will soon come to an end, and he resolves to sail out farther than usual the following day. So, on the 85th day of his unlucky streak, Santiago does as he's promised himself, sailing his skiff, which is a wooden boat, far into the island's shallow coastal waters and venturing into the Gulf Stream. He prepares his lines and drops them. At noon, a big fish, which he knows is a marlin, takes the bait and that Santiago has placed, which he's placed it pretty deep, 100 fathoms deep in the waters. The old man expertly hooks the fish, but he cannot pull it in. It's so heavy. Instead, the fish begins to pull the boat. Unable to tie the line fast to the boat for fear the fish would snap a taut line, the old man bears the strains of the line on his shoulders, his back, and hands, ready to give slack would the marlin make a run for it. The fish pulls the boat all through the day, through the night, through another day, and through another night. So Santiago actually sees 3 sunrises while out on his quest. The fish swims steadily northwest until at last it tires and swims east along with the current. The entire time, Santiago endures constant pain from the fishing line. Whenever the fish lunges, leaps, or makes a dash for freedom, the cord cuts deep into Santiago's hands and his shoulders badly. Although wounded and weary, the old man feels a deep empathy and admiration for the marlin, because he's his brother in suffering, strength, and resolve. On the third day, the fish tires, and Santiago, sleep-deprived, aching, and nearly delirious, manages to pull the marlin in close enough to kill it with a harpoon thrust. Now dead beside the skiff, the marlin is the largest Santiago has ever seen. He latches it to his boat, raises a small mast, and sets sail for home. So while Santiago is excited by the price that the marlin will fetch at the market, he's more concerned that the people who will eat the fish are unworthy of its greatness. So as Santiago sails on with the fish, the marlin's blood leaves a trail in the water and attracts several sharks. The first to strike is a great mako shark, which Santiago manages to slay with a harpoon. But in the struggle, the old man loses the harpoon and a considerable length of valuable rope, which leaves him vulnerable to other shark attacks. So the old man fights off the successive vicious predators as best as he can, stabbing at them with a crude spear he makes by latching a knife to an oar, and even clubbing them with the boat's tiller. So although he kills several sharks, more and more keep appearing, and by the time night falls, Santiago's continued fight against the scavengers is useless. They devour the marlin's precious meat, leaving only its head, tail, and a bony spine. So Santiago chastises himself for going out too far, and for sacrificing his great and worthy opponent. He arrives home before daybreak, stumbles back to his shack, and sleeps very deeply. The next morning, a crowd of amazed fishermen gathers around the skeleton carcass of the fish, which is still latched onto the boat. Knowing nothing of the old man's struggle, some American tourists at a nearby cafe observe the remains of the giant marlin and mistake it for a shark. Manolin, the boy, who has been worried sick over the old man's absence, he's moved to tears when he finds Santiago safe in his bed. The boy fetches the old man some coffee and his daily papers with the baseball scores and watches him sleep. When the old man wakes, the two agree to fish as partners once more. The old man returns to sleep and dreams his usual dream of lions at play on the beaches of Africa. So, a rather ordinary end. However, there's nothing ordinary about the book and about Hemingway's portrayal of Santiago, the sea, and the Resolute Marlin. So, The Old Man and the Sea is an allegorical story, a grand metaphor of life. Most faiths would agree that Santiago's quest to go farther out into the sea and procure himself a big fish has the characteristics of a spiritual journey. So while a spiritual journey is tough, we're presented with both challenges and resources to be successful. However, it is a journey that we all have to take alone, take all by ourselves. So in Gurbani, this concept is well described in the second Ashpati of Sukhmani Sahib Ji. The first pada states, Jeh maat pita sut meet na bhai, where there is no mother, father, children, friends, or siblings. Santiago, he did this journey without his well-wishers, even the boy. Jeh Mahabhayan Doot Jamdale, where the great and terrible messenger of death shall try to crush you. There was a constant danger to Santiago's life in this journey. The path is sharp. People tend to give up and fall off the path. Santiago, he held tight onto the lion and the marlin. He knew this was not an easy feat, and other fishermen, less experienced than him, would have given in easily. Jeh muskil hove at bhari, where the obstacles are so very heavy. Santiago endured pains and injuries while trying to hold the line lest the marlin broke free. He endured starvation, thirst, and the blazing sun to get to his goal. Anik Maya rang tik na bujhave. By the countless pleasures of Maya, your thirst shall not be quenched. There are numerous distractions we encounter while on the spiritual journey. We're distracted by Maya. Santiago was distracted by many fly fish, the turtles, luminescence in the sea, and the other flora and fauna. Jeh marag eho jat ekela. Upon that path where you must all go alone. Jeh marag eho jat ekela. There are many positives in the quest. The Sangat we meet. Santiago's Sangat came in the form of Manolin, the boy. He was a positive influence, a comfort for Santiago, who helped him attain his goal. As in Kirtan Sohila, Dehe Sajan Asisriya, Jeo Hove Sahib Siomil. Everyone needs an inspirational figure to get through their journey. Our gurus and our sakhis provide us this motivation. In Sikhi, the grace of the guru is necessary to guide us on the spiritual path. The care and tutelage of the guru protects us from many untoward calamities and encourages us through the many crises in life. Santiago is a great admirer of Joe DiMaggio, whose memory supplies fresh energy to him in his struggles on the sea. He feels a special affinity with DiMaggio, whose father was a fisherman. DiMaggio is his role model in his efforts to achieve excellence. Therefore, he wants to do things perfectly so that DiMaggio may approve his performance. But I must have confidence, and I must be worthy of the great DiMaggio, who does all things perfectly, even with the pain of the bone spur in his heel. Santiago does not know what a bone spur is, but knows that it must be a very painful condition. If DiMaggio has a bone spur, Santiago's hands and back hurt equally badly, and this gives him some satisfaction. After killing the great marlin, the old man feels happy and thinks that the great DiMaggio would be proud of him. Some personal virtues are essential to complete the spiritual journey. As stated in the 38th Pauri of Japji Sahib, Jat Pahara Dheeraj Suniyar. Let self-control be the furnace and patience the goldsmith. Eheran mat ved hathiyar. Let understanding be the anvil and spiritual wisdom the tools. Santiago demonstrated extreme resilience, perseverance, skill, sacrifice, fear of failure, and desire to please the great DiMaggio. Our relation with our gurus and Vaheguru is one of fear and love. Bhau khalla agan tap tao. With the fear of God as the bellows, fan the flames of tap, the body's inner heat. Santiago shared a somewhat similar relation with DiMaggio in his mind, desire to please him. Now, Hemingway seems to suggest that even if the old man had returned with the marlin intact, his moment of glory, like the marlin's meat, would have been short-lived. In fact, Santiago did not really experience the exhilaration of achievement. He realized that his journey did not have a meaning or significance for anyone else. A cat passed on the far side, going about his business, and the old man just watched it. His great day ended with the sunset. All worldly and material prizes are impermanent. The marlin was reduced to a skeleton, regardless of being eaten by the sharks or man. In fact, as the day was ending, Santiago already made plans to go out into the sea with the boy the next day and get some fish. His marlin, so short-lived, all forgotten. The only true and permanent pursuit in our spiritual journey is Naam, our connection with Vaheguru. Godspeed. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. Thank you for your time and attention. Bhulchuk Maaf.
Gorby's commentary and insightful review on The Old Man and the Sea rather makes it very clear for us that Old Man and the Sea is the story of a life, any life, all life. And the themes that are alluded to and expounded to in this work, they all apply to life. You know, in what we see is also that in Ernest Hemingway's work, you know, his life actually was at a stage where he poured his self into Santiago. So Santiago and Hemingway are sort of the same in that phase of life when Hemingway wrote this work. And both of them, we know, were struggling at that time. You know, there had not been a book that had been successful for Hemingway for about a decade, and here we had a fisherman in Santiago who hadn't caught a fish in 84 days. So we see some parallelism, and so we see that this was one of the very significant protagonists that perhaps came out from the pen of Ernest Hemingway, because it was himself. We see the major themes in the work as perseverance. It wasn't easy to kill that fish, the marlin that he killed. There was suffering involved, and moreover, Santiago proved that, you know, he could suffer without the regret for having a great prize. There was strength and skills. You know, at one point in time, Manolan says that other fishermen who are, you know, around him have, you know, perseverance and energy, but they don't have the skill that Santiago has. You know, and then we see that there is struggle in the novel, there's resentment for losing, but then there's resurrection, revivification, and then continuum of life, you know, again taking on. So this is very much, you know, life in general, and Gorby put it very beautifully, explaining the content of the novel and really drawing deep parallel wisdom from Sukhmani Sahib, Kirtan Sohela, Japji Sahib. She gives us a precious lesson that we should consciously or unconsciously seek out learning, spiritual learning, from the ways and norms and tokens and life in general, you know, that the existential life that exists around us, that this is where we should draw spiritual learning from. Thank you for the profound talk, Gorby. We appreciate it. As the final section of the book reviews today, I'd like to now invite upon Jasnoor Kaur to present the book review on her book, The Old Path and White Clouds by Thich Nhat Hanh.
Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. I read the book Old Path, White Clouds by Thich Nhat Hanh. This book presents the life and teachings of Gautama Buddha. It starts from the point of view of one of his young disciples named Swasti, and shifts between Swasti's and Buddha's point of view during this book. Swasti is a poor boy who tends to buffaloes in order to make a living for himself and his family, and is met by the Buddha as he is in search for the path of enlightenment. The author of this book, Thich Nhat Hanh, was a Vietnamese Tien Buddhist monk. Born in Vietnam in the year 1926, he entered Tu Hieu Temple in Hieu City as a novice monk at the age of 16. As a young bhikshu or a monk, he was actively engaged in the movement to renew Buddhism in Vietnam and was one of the first bhikkhus to study a secular subject at a university in Saigon. During the Vietnam War, monks and nuns were asked the question of whether to continue living a contemplative life and continue meditating in monasteries, or to help those suffering under the bombings and aftermath of the war. Thich Nhat Hanh chose to participate in both and founded the engaged Buddhist movement as a result. His life has been dedicated to the work of inner transformation for the benefit of individuals as well as a whole society. In 1961, Hanh traveled to the United States on a scholarship to study comparative religion at Princeton Theological Seminary and went on to teach and research Buddhism at Columbia University the following year. He founded the School of Youth and Social Services in Vietnam and over the course of his life became a peace activist, prolific author, poet, and a teacher while founding several other groups and institutions. In 1967, he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and as a result, both North and South Vietnam exiled him for 39 years, as this was at the time of the Vietnam War. He became known as the father of mindfulness, and as he continued to teach, lecture, and write about the subject, he established a community in southwest France, which became known as Plum Village. Under Han's spiritual leadership, this village grew from a small rural farmstead to the West's largest and most active Buddhist monastery, with over 10,000 visitors a year coming to learn about the art of mindful living. Mindfulness practice centers in Plum Village offer special retreats for business people, teachers, families, healthcare professionals, psychotherapists, politicians, and young people, and it is estimated that over 750,000 people participate in activities led by Plum Village monks and nuns worldwide every year. Multiple monasteries have also been opened all over the world in places such as New York, California, Vietnam, Hong Kong, Thailand, Australia, and Germany. Thich Nhat Hanh died in January of 2022, and after his cremation, his ashes were distributed among his practice centers all over the world. Thousands of people in the Plum Village international community collectively observed a week of mindfulness practice and ceremonies, generating feelings of compassion, peace, brotherhood, and sisterhood. The book Old Path, White Clouds starts off from the point of view of a young buffalo boy named Svasti. The author describes the emotion him and his family go through the day the Buddha comes to accept him as one of his disciples. This was a heavily anticipated moment as described by Svasti's feelings at the time, as he had been waiting from a young age to turn 20 and become accepted into the community of Buddha students. Though he struggles to understand some of the concepts that the Buddha goes on to teach, he begins to make friends with the fellow bhikkhus and asks them for help on understanding the meaning behind the lessons taught to him. The story shifts from Svasti's experience with being accepted into the community to a retelling of the Buddha's life. Born with the name Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha was raised as a son of the king of Kosala. During his birth, the king and queen were given a prophecy that the Buddha would go on to either become a powerful ruler or a holy monk. Not wanting his son to become a monk, the king did everything he could to shield Siddhartha from seeing any pain and suffering. He grew up a comfortable life as a prince and reacted against the philosophy and lifestyle of the Brahmins as he began getting older. He began noting the suffering of poor people outside of the castle during this time and began questioning his belief in the Vedas. One day he attended a martial arts competition held by a nearby kingdom and met Yasodhara, the princess of the kingdom. He got to know her over time and found out that she often went to help poor children by tending to their injuries and hardships. This further exposed him to the suffering of those around him, and he wondered for an answer or a way to ease their suffering. After some time, Siddhartha and Yasodhara got married and had a son named Rahula. One day, Yasodhara and Siddhartha decided to go out on a day's outing and came in contact with a sick man who encountered an infection with no cure. Siddhartha jumped out of his carriage to find a way to help the man and stayed by his side despite the risk that he could have gotten infected too. He held the sick man's hand until he died. That night, Yasodhara had 3 dreams announcing Siddhartha's departure to find the way to enlightenment. After asking the king to become a monk and being rejected, Siddhartha decided to leave in the middle of the night after a party. Leaving all his valuables with his former attendants, Siddhartha dressed simply and sought for teachers to help him find a way in which to end people's suffering. He studied meditation with multiple teachers and excelled quickly. However, he didn't feel as if he had reached his goal yet. He went from teacher to teacher and not having reached his goal, headed for a set of mountains in which he began to practice self-mortification. He made 5 friends who practiced the same behavior, but as time passed, Siddhartha realized he was no closer to his goal by self-mortifying and abandoned the practice, as well as his friends who no longer believed in his motivation to find the way. Gautama sat beneath a pipla tree and turned to look within himself for his answers on how to end all suffering. He began noticing how he could not find a single thing in his body that remained unchanged, or that could be said to contain a separate self. He compared his feelings to water through contemplating that intermingled with the river of his body was the river of feelings in which every feeling was a drop of water. These drops also jostled with one another in the process of birth, existence, and death. Some feelings were pleasant, some were unpleasant, and some neutral, but all his feelings were impermanent. They appeared and just disappeared just like the cells of his body. Next, Gautama explored the rivers of perception that flowed alongside the rivers of body and feeling. The drops in the river of perception influenced each other in the process of birth, existence, and death. If one's perceptions were accurate, then reality easily revealed itself. However, if their perceptions were full of error, then reality would remain covered. The people who were caught in an endless suffering had errors in their perceptions. They thought that the impermanent is permanent, that which is without self contains self, that which has no birth and death has birth and death, and they divided that which is inseparable into parts. Gautama also began focusing on mental states, which were the source of suffering, such as fear, anger, and hatred. He noticed that these all arose due to ignorance and were the opposite of mindfulness. The key to the liberation from his darkness would be to break through the ignorance and to enter deeply into the heart of reality and attain direct experience from it. He noticed a pipla leaf from the tree he was sitting underneath and saw the presence of the sun and stars in the creation of the leaf. He noted that without the presence of clouds in the leaf, there wouldn't have been rain to nurture it. He saw the earth, time, space, and mind were all present in that leaf, and that the entire universe existed in the leaf. Gautama saw that the leaf had never been born because the sunlight, the clouds, the tree, and himself had been there for a long time, and he could see that he too had never been born. Both him and the leaf had simply manifested and therefore were never capable of dying either. The sunlight, the rain, the time, the clouds, and all the things that went into nurturing the leaf would continue to exist, and therefore so would the leaf itself. Gautama saw that the existence of one phenomena made it possible for the existence of several other phenomena, and one phenomena, therefore including all, made them all one. He saw that the leaf and his body were one. Neither existed independently from the rest of the universe, and he realized that the key to liberation lay in the 2 principles of interdependence and non-self. Siddhartha saw that impermanence and emptiness of self were the conditions necessary for life, and without them, nothing could grow. The source of suffering, he realized, was the belief in permanence and the existence of separate selves. Neither birth nor death, destruction or production were false distinctions created by intellect. Siddhartha thought to himself that if one penetrates into the empty nature of all things, one will transcend all mental barriers and be liberated from the cycle of suffering. As he made these revelations, he felt closer to enlightenment than he ever had for the years he had spent as a monk in search for the path. He felt this long-awaited moment approaching and decided to meditate that night. Through mindfulness, Siddhartha's mind, body, and breath were perfectly at one. By shifting his awareness to his mind, he realized that love and understanding were one. Without understanding, there could be no love, and in order to love, it was first necessary to understand, meaning that understanding was the key to liberation. In order to obtain clear understanding, it is necessary to live mindfully, making direct contact with the present moment to see what is going on within and outside of oneself. Practicing mindfulness strengthens the ability to look deeply, and anything will reveal itself if we look deeply into the heart of it. The secret treasure of mindfulness led to the realization of liberation and enlightenment. At this moment, Gautama felt as though the prison which had confined him for many lifetimes had broken open, and ignorance had been the jailkeeper. Because of ignorance, his mind had been obscured. He observed his surroundings and felt as if he were seeing them for the first time, as he saw them as an enlightened being. Siddhartha knew he had found the great way, and his heart experienced perfect happiness and ease. Following the event of his enlightenment, he became known as the Buddha, or the Enlightened One. Eventually, he made his way back to his family, and he began teaching his past companions of the true way and accepted those who sought for the path towards enlightenment. Over the course of his life, he obtained thousands of students and met many kings who built monasteries in which the Buddha and the bhikkhus could practice meditation. Many of his future disciples felt sudden ease just hearing the Buddha speak and developed a peace of mind, motivating them to learn his teachings. During ceremonies of accepting new bhikkhus to the community, the Buddha's senior students would often speak of the three precious gems, which were the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha was described as the awakened one, who saw the nature of life and the cosmos. An awakened person is not bound by illusions, fear, desire, or anger, and is instead a free person filled with peace and joy. The Buddha shows the way of life so that the bhikkhus could overcome forgetfulness and become awakened themselves. Each disciple was encouraged to find the Buddha within their own hearts. The second gem, called the Dharma, is the path which led to awakening. This is the path that the Buddha taught, which helped transcend the prisons of ignorance, anger, fear, and desire, enabling love and understanding, which were the two most beautiful fruits of the path of awakening. The third gem, called the Sangha, was the community of people following the path of the awakening. While alone, each disciple would encounter difficulties on their path to awakening, but with the support of the Sangha, there was a community to practice the way of liberation with. Throughout the course of the Buddha's life and his teachings, he presented many stories to his audience, comparing animals which could have represented his past lives. He stressed the idea that many of the bhikkhus in the Sangha could have also taken part in these stories by having been one of the animals in his stories. Though the style and tone of this book was very simple to read, there were so many lessons given by the Buddha that I don't think it would be possible to obtain and understand them all in one reading. Because this book is quite lengthy and presents the Buddha's teachings from his birth to the day his body passed, it was hard to grasp the meaning behind all of them. Because there were many events that also took place in this book, the Buddha was shown to have given lessons based on the recent events that would occur over the course of his lifetime and the challenges that the Sangha would come across during the time he taught them. The time that I spent reading this book was quite worthwhile. However, if I were to read it again, I would begin to understand some of the other teachings, which I had previously missed out on, and so forth. I can't say I have truly read this book, as I haven't understood all the teachings the author had written from the Buddha. However, I highly encourage the people present in the audience today to read the book at least once to obtain just a small portion of the vast amounts of knowledge the Buddha shared with his disciples. The Four Noble Truths, revolving around suffering, as well as the Eightfold Path towards enlightenment, were just some of the many teachings the Buddha had to offer, and this book goes into depth about the valuable teachings found in Buddhism. The author does a good job stressing the importance of mindfulness in reaching enlightenment through the path the Buddha spoke and taught of. Thank you for listening to my book report, and I hope you got the opportunity to read this book. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Old Path and White Clouds, is a rather voluminous text. So I appreciate Jasnoor taking this voluminous book and giving us these nuggets of information and wisdom from the work. Thich Nhat Hanh was an avid Buddhist teacher. And it is believed that he understood the tenets of Buddhism from the Pali Suttas, or the wisdom that regarding Buddhism that was basically captured in the Pali language in Sri Lanka. And it is said that after Buddha's death, these lessons that Buddha had taught, for the longest time they were actually passed through the oral tradition, but after some significant time these lessons were inscribed in the Pali language, and they were finally committed in the written form in about 100 BC. What we've seen Jasnoor tell us is some of the anchorings of the Shunya philosophy. The Shunya philosophy associates with the teachings of Gautama Buddha, where we see that, when we hear that love and understanding, they are connected to each other and they are the key to liberation. The philosophy also informs that if there is an error in perception, then the error in human perception basically is the source of all suffering that we go through. And that earth, mind, and space, the whole universe comes together in the manifestation of physical object on this earth. So there is the universe in the atom, and there's atom in the universe. So no part of the universe is deplete of anything. It is complete in itself. So some profound lessons about life and beyond life, and when probably there was no life, are contained in Shunya philosophy, and Thich Nhat Hanh's Old Path and White Clouds brings that wisdom, brings knowledge about that philosophy closer to a reader. Thank you, Jasnoor, for taking this book on and giving us some precious insights, and I hope this will encourage us all to read this book in the coming days. With this comment, I will now like to move towards closing part of this session. Would like to thank all the speakers who shared their thoughts today, spent their time and energy reading these profound works and sharing with us the nuggets that they gathered from there. Thank you to everyone who's today a part of this audience. We look forward to having you in the 7th session of the Sikh Women Book Club, which will be conducted on September 24th at the same premise. Mata Tripta Gurukar de Natpragas USA ਵੱਲੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।